What's up, YouTube? I'm Brett from Rants. As always, guys, if y'all enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave that comment down below. We're on the road to 1,000. We hope you guys can help us get there. Alright, so this probably isn't going to come as a shock to many of y'all, especially those who have watched it. Shadow and Bone is actually breaking streaming records. I mean, it is now over 1.2 billion viewing minutes. It says right here, new figures show that in its second week on Netflix, Shadow and Bone was the #1 most streamed show in the U.S. with a massive viewership record. It says right here, new figures allow the show the Netflix fantasy series Shadow and Bone has topped streaming charts in the U.S. with a massive 1.192 billion minutes worth of viewership in its second week of release. Of course, you know, we all know, based on the best-selling Grishaverse novels by young adult author Leigh Bardugo, the 8-episode Netflix adaptation has quickly been garnering praise from fans and critics alike for its imaginative storytelling and richly detailed production. Goes on to state right here, it says, most recently, Deadline also reports the Netflix fantasy epic has managed to top the Nielsen streaming viewership rankings, beating out Hulu's The Handmaid's Tale for the #1 spot for the week of April 26th to May 2nd. In the prior week, the show had even managed to debut in the #3 slot, just below Marvel's The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, after only being available for 3 days of that week. The results of the Nielsen rankings, which measure TV-based views on Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, Hulu, and Disney Plus throughout the U.S., are delayed by a month by an agreement with the streaming services. It says, while those numbers are good news for Netflix, given the rave reviews Shadow and Bone seems to have garnered at the time of its release, they probably come as no surprise for fans who have been loudly proclaiming the show's many virtues since its debut. With the void left by the 2019 conclusion of Game of Thrones, nearly every streaming service is scrambling to be the first to find the next big fantasy series that will capture people's attention. With shows like Amazon's Lord of the Rings and Wheel of Time and HBO's House of the Dragon still a little way off, Netflix has managed to slip in ahead and strike while the iron is hot with both The Witcher and Shadow and Bone. Now, let me just state this. I don't personally believe that they should compare it with Game of Thrones. Because while Game of Thrones had a really terrible ending to it, in a really bad last season, everyone was talking about Game of Thrones. Everyone was talking about Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones was something that the young, the old, people that really weren't into the fantasy genre were all talking about Game of Thrones. It was that big. It was a cultural phenomenon in a lot of ways. Shadow and Bone is good. Don't get me wrong. It is good. I really actually enjoyed this season. But to say that it's on the same level, I don't know. Maybe it will get to that. It's certainly got great viewing records. I mean, there's no doubt people are behind this series. But to go so far to say, okay, this could be the next Game of Thrones, I don't know about that. I know that's not what they were necessarily saying, but even to put it in that category, I just kind of feel like that's setting the bar way too high for this show. It has potential. It's lived up to that potential. I don't really think the ceiling is that much higher for it. I think it's good at what it does. I feel like it really, allowed us a interesting season, but I don't believe that it's up to those standards. As far as The Witcher is concerned, I actually believe The Witcher is below this. I love The Witcher books. I love The Witcher games. But that Witcher series with Henry Cavill as Geralt is not uh, comparable to the games or to the books, especially to the books. Um, that Geralt is so boring in a lot of ways. He needs um, he needs side characters to push that story forward. Um, so as far as that is concerned, I feel like um, this Shadow and Bone is above that because Shadow and Bone has a really compelling story, some really great um, uh, characters, main characters, side characters. Really, they could go in any different direction that they wanted to with this show. Of course, they're going to follow the books, but there's probably going to be a spin-off of it, which I would be kind of cool with. You know what? I wouldn't mind a prequel over, the Darkling or something along those lines. I think that would be really kind of cool. So, I mean, there's that. That could always be a possibility. But it feels like everybody, when they make these comparisons or when they get excited about these things, they're like, oh, this could be the next Game of Thrones. No, it's probably not. More than likely, it's not. I've never, in my adult life, I don't know if I've ever seen a show quite like Game of Thrones. And I'm not talking about that it was epic to watch. I'm talking about the excitement that was around it. It was like nothing I had ever seen before. I'm trying to think of any show that could even be comparable. I don't really think so. I mean, it was basically the MCU of series, I mean, it was that big. And so, yeah, it's not, you don't get bigger than Game of Thrones when it comes to excitement wise. You can maybe make better content than Game of Thrones, but as far as excitement wise, I'm like, no, I don't necessarily believe that. I'm looking forward to Shadow and Bone season 2. I think it's going to break even more records as um, people come to know more about it. People come to read the books. Right now, I'm reading the books, and I'll admit I really actually enjoy it. I feel like the show was very. It wasn't, it wasn't word for word like what the books are. There's minor differences, but it's not like anything that is, out there. It's not like, like let's take Game of Thrones for instance, where they completely and totally just change certain characters or make that character have a part that some other character had in the books. It wasn't. I didn't particularly notice anything that was like that. Now, could be completely wrong about it, but I personally didn't notice anything that just stood out to me that was a big change. Overall, I think this series has potential, but I feel like it's hit its ceiling. Um, I feel like it's hit its potential and it's as good as it's going to get. I don't see it getting any better. I don't see it losing anybody from season 1 either. I've personally enjoyed it. Me and my wife have been doing reviews here on Rants or Us over it. I think it was excellent. Um, was there some episodes that I feel like maybe left me wanting a little more? Yeah, there was some. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but for what it is, it's good. It's the best fantasy uh, novel slash series that I've seen since Game of Thrones. Uh, in that respect, it really is. I feel like The Witcher is extremely underwhelming, where Shadow and Bone actually excels at really staying true to the books in a lot of ways, and maybe even bringing some of the more interesting parts of the books to life in a really brilliant, beautiful way. So yeah, I'm all about Shadow and Bone. I think Shadow and Bone is going to do great in season 2. But as far as again, the comparisons, I don't like the comparisons. If I was the showrunners of Shadow and Bone, I would really clamp down on any comparisons when it comes to that. Because people that are just tuning in, they're like, oh man, this is the next best thing since Game of Thrones, are going to be really shocked to find that, hey, you know what? It might be good, but if you're looking at expectation wise going in, you will probably be disappointed. And not because the show's bad, but because it's just not going to live up to those expectations. So why put those expectations into place to begin with? That's my point to it. But hey, I'm glad that it did so well on streaming services. I think we're gonna see just boatloads of fantasy novels coming to life in series and in movies. Because hey, you know what? Outside the MCU, there's not really, a genre that is really just taking off right now. And I feel like this could be something that could be the big trend for like the next 5 to 10 years. That's me personally. But guys, let me know what y'all think. Do you feel like Shadow and Bone lived up to its expectations? Are you shocked that so many viewers tuned in? Let me know what y'all think down below. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. And y'all take care.